Hi homebodies, welcome back to my channel, Catskill Mountain Homebody. I filmed all day today and the intro that I filmed messed up. And so here it is at the end of the day and I'm filming my intro. So just want to say welcome to my channel. All right, I am going to start by telling you about an art project / family history project that I'm working on. And then later on, I'm going to make a buffalo chicken dinner. All right, back to what I filmed before. All right, so I have to give you some backstory. This goes back to the 4th of July, which is the American Independence holiday, 1976. And that was known as the bicentennial celebration, the 200-year anniversary of America declaring independence from England, and later on winning our War of Independence against England. So in 1976, there were nationwide celebrations for the 200th anniversary of the birth of our nation. And I, at the time, was 6 years old. Let me show you what I looked like at 6 years old. This was me. This was me. 6 years old on the bicentennial celebration of America. By the way, notice I'm wearing a red, white, and blue sundress. All right, so let me tell you where we were. I grew up in northern New Jersey in a little town, and it was a great neighborhood. And the neighbors were all friends for decades and decades. We moved in when I was around 3 years old. And my parents became very close friends with all of the parents in the neighborhood. Our next door neighbor, the people across the street, the people around the block. It was about 20 families that were very, very, very close. All the parents are very, very close. My parents were a little bit younger than the other parents in the neighborhood, about 10 years younger. So a lot of the parents in the neighborhood had kids in there who were like tweens, teenagers. And my parents were having... My brother and my sister and I were all under 4 years old. So their family was a little younger, but that neighborhood was fun. And the adults always planned parties. We just had a good time. And so my mother always said, you'll never find another neighborhood like that neighborhood was. We had parties for every season you can think of. Every year there was a Christmas caroling party. We would walk around the neighborhood and Christmas carol. There were summer parties. The adults would have a progressive party all the time where they would go to 3 different houses. They would have hors d'oeuvres at one house, one neighbor's house. Then they would have dinner at another neighbor's house, and they would have dessert at the third neighbor's house. Those were called progressive dinners. My parents went to those constantly for decades, like 40 years. My parents went to these dinners. They had Super Bowl parties. It was an unbelievably close-knit, fun neighborhood. So, of course, they couldn't have let the bicentennial celebration go by without a big party. So the street that I lived on was a little street. It was maybe 6 houses. They asked the town for permission to shut the street down to traffic for the day, and they organized this huge block party. And it had everything. On one side of the street, they had, in the middle of the road, set up picnic tables. They had a barbecue going, and they had food served all day. This was all free. This was all paid for by all the neighbors, and it was just free to the neighborhood. So they had free food, free barbecue. There was, on our property, they had put up a little soda stand where you could just walk up and get a soda. I love that. They had activities for the kids. They had clowns. They had balloons. At night they organized a square dance. They had someone orchestrating a square dance. Of course, we had fireworks after the sunset. There were games going on people's lawns, and it was just this. And I was 6 years old. I pretty much had free reign. So I had a friend, Jessica, and Jessica and I just kind of like wandered around the whole day. We did square dancing, and I really wasn't with my parents all day. I was just kind of like having a good time. So anyway, my entire family was there. It was my parents, my brother, sister, and I. My Uncle Joe. My Uncle Joe was a bachelor. He lived nearby. He was a doctor. So he came. And my mother's mother was there also. In our garage, every house did something, right? They had some activity going on to celebrate the bicentennial. So in our garage, they hung up a big American flag on the wall, and they had a photographer there taking photographs of everybody standing in front of the flag, and then they would make your picture into these buttons. So this is a button. Okay, so I have had my button since 1976. I held on to it. I didn't want to get rid of it. So after my grandmother died, I found her button in with some of her costume jewelry. So I have my grandmother's button. Then I was looking through my uncle passed away a few years ago. And he had a bunch of photo albums that he had put together. So I'm looking through his old photo album last week, and lo and behold, guess what I find? I find his button. So I have his button. So I have my grandmother's button, my button, and my Uncle Joe's button. Last week, I'm at my parents' house visiting, and they had moved to this new apartment about 3 years ago, and they haven't unpacked all their photo albums. There was one more box of photo albums, and I said, let me go through this box. Maybe I'll take some photos or albums that they have. And there was a little cracked wooden box in this cardboard box. I open it up, and lo and behold, I find my parents' buttons and 3 buttons of my 2-year-old brother. So I have everybody's button everybody from my family who was at this bicentennial celebration. I have all their buttons. The only one I don't have is my sister's. I don't know if she has hers. So I'm not going to include her button in my display unless she wants me to. But I want to make a display of all of these buttons from the bicentennial. I thought that would be a fun display. And I'm going to hang it in this living room somewhere. I don't know where yet. All right, so let me show you some of the buttons. I don't have them all out right now. All right. Here's my mother's button. She decided to dress like a cowgirl for some reason. But, of course, she picked a red and white blouse. So that's my mother. Here's my dad. He decided to wear a red, white, and blue polo. This is like a rugby shirt. So that's what he wore. And, all right, obviously my brother wasn't cooperating with smiling. So he has 3 buttons because obviously my mom didn't like the buttons he got. So here's one where he's not smiling or looking at the camera. Here's one where he is smiling and looking at the camera. And here's one where he is also smiling and looking at the camera. But you can't really see the stars and the flag behind him. I think this is the one I'm going to put on the display because he's smiling, looking at the camera, and you can see the flag pretty well. So I think that's the one I'm going to use, and these 2 I'm going to put away. And if he wants them, I can give them to him, but I doubt he's going to want them. And again, I don't have my sister's. I'll ask her if she has it, if she wants to give it to me or not. If not, that's okay. And again, I have my uncles, and my grandmother's buttons. So what I want to do, and I haven't decided how I'm going to display this yet, but I think I want to get a shadow box. Maybe put some blue felt in the back, and somewhere put bicentennial 1776, 1976 on the top, and then have the buttons displayed, and then on the back maybe print out a list of who everybody is, what was going on. All right, so if I can find some pictures from the block party, I'm going to put them in this video. But it was a very, very, very fun day. And again, I was 6 years old. And I still remember square dancing across the street from my house. I remember eating in the picnic area. I don't remember what I ate, but I remember eating. I remember a moment where my brother was holding a balloon and he let go of it. And my uncle tried to jump up and grab it and he couldn't get it. And my brother was crying and then they tied the balloon to his arm. I remember that. I remember getting a stomach ache from drinking too much soda and having to lie down on my couch for a while. So I remember so much from that block party. It's one of my fondest memories of growing up. And so I really wanted to make a display where I, can look at it and remember that day. And it's part of our family history and part of the history of that neighborhood. All right, so that's what I'm working on. I'm going to try to go to Michael's. We don't have a Michael's up here where I live. I'm going to have to drive to Michael's in the next week. So I'm going to go and find a shadow box. I'm hoping to get a rectangle one. And then I'll let you guys know how I'll walk you through how I figure out how I'm gonna organize this art project / family history project. So that's my plan. All right, we're getting close to dinner time. So let me go over what we're doing for dinner tonight. I am making buffalo chicken breasts and air fried Brussels sprouts. That is the plan for dinner. We're gonna do this part of the recipe after I get the chicken breasts in the oven, but we're gonna work on the chicken breasts first. Okay, so I have these divided dishes that fit together that I use for chicken cutlets. All right, so this is the brand of buffalo wing sauce that I bought this week. You can buy any buffalo wing sauce you prefer. And then I have a little bit of Panko plain breadcrumbs. All right, you don't need a lot of buffalo sauce, maybe a half a cup. I'm only doing 4 chicken breasts. So I'm gonna do with 4 chicken breasts, I'm gonna do a half a cup of buffalo wing sauce in one side of this tray. And then I'm probably gonna do a cup of Panko plain breadcrumbs on the other side. We're gonna dip the raw chicken into the buffalo wing sauce, then into the Panko breadcrumbs. I have a baking pan here with a prepared parchment paper that I have just oiled a little bit with olive oil. I want to make sure the chicken breasts don't stick to the pan because I need to flip them halfway through baking. So I'm going to be baking these in the oven around 400 degrees Fahrenheit. All right, so let me get the oven on and then we're going to bread these chicken breasts and then I'll show you how they bake in the oven. Getting ready to pull the chicken out to turn it over, but I do want to point out I took out this this tray from my air fryer. We're not going to use the tray, I'm just going to use the basket. All right, it's sizzling hot. I ended up cooking these about 10 minutes at 400 degrees. I'm going to use a fork to flip them. See how they're not sticking to the parchment paper? That's what you want. You don't want these to stick or all of the breading will fall off it. So that's why I'm going to use a fork to flip them. Okay, they're all flipped now. We're going to bake them I'm probably going to bake them another about 15 minutes to make sure they're cooked through. So they'll be baked a little under 30 minutes and they should be cooked through. Let's put them back in the oven. All right, I have preheated the air fryer. I've removed my tray. Now we're going to put some of these Brussels sprouts in the basket. So let's pull this out. All right, it's nice and hot. All right, let's fill up the basket with some of the Brussels sprouts. And they should be delicious. The chicken is in the oven for another about 15 minutes. And then I'm gonna put the French fries in the oven while we finish up the Brussels sprouts. And it's gonna be a delicious spring dinner. And this is an easy dinner. You guys can cook this at home for your family. If you love buffalo chicken, you can make buffalo chicken sandwiches, but this is an easy recipe. Anyone can do it. And it is a great summer recipe if you like it, if you pair it with a salad. So I got a clean fork and I did test them. And they do seem very tender. So I'm going to take these out and keep them warm. Alright, chicken is done. It's looking good. I'm gonna let it sit for a minute. The Brussels sprouts, the last batch of Brussels sprouts are in the air fryer. I also put a little bit of fries in the oven as a side dish. And Joe and I are gonna eat dinner very soon. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. Of course, stay tuned. I will be showing you the finished plate after it all comes together. Again, this is an easy summer spring dish that you can make for your family, quick and easy. I've already cleaned up the kitchen and it's gonna be great. It's gonna be delicious. I hope you all are having a wonderful spring. Thank you for joining me. Please consider subscribing to my channel, Catskill Mountain Homebody, if you like recipe videos or decorating videos or videos on the Catskill Mountain area of New York that we live in, or videos featuring my two puppies. Here they are. I gave them bones. And Scout gets bored very easily, right? And Chipper continues. And Chipper takes both bones. And Scout just stands there. He's good. They're too silly. I'll put the recipe for the chicken in the description of this video in case you want to try it yourself. All right, stay tuned for the finished plate. Happy May. See you in the next video.